And thank y'all for coming. My name is Jack Seavey. I'm the Stitch Development Manager. I work for Central Atlanta Progress and Atlanta Downtown Improvement District. And we work with the city, community members, and businesses to try to make downtown a better place. So we do things like initiatives like the Stitch, and we work on transportation improvements downtown. So we worked with the city on implementing the new Martin Luther King bike lanes that went in. That's an example of some of the projects we work on. We work on park and placemaking improvements. So if you ever enjoy the downtown boardwalk on Broad Street, we help to program the activations there, the arts and entertainment district signs downtown. We do all these initiatives to try to make downtown more vibrant. And one of our big initiatives as a district is working with our partners to try and get more people living downtown. And because that's really the key to creating a live, work, play, a vibrant community in downtown. We want it to be not only just a 9 to 5 where people come and work, but where people can live and grocery shop and send their kids to daycare and enjoy great parks and infrastructure downtown too. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the Stitch as a whole. I'm then going to talk about some exciting news that happened recently around the Stitch. We recently won a major grant that will fund construction of phase 1 of the project. And so I'll talk about both of those things and how that all fits into what we're doing tonight. So tonight this is the second event that we've had as part of our master planning process, which is where we're trying to ask community members, ask Atlantans, what they want the Stitch to be, what they want this area of Atlanta to be, and how the Stitch can help meet those goals. We had a meeting back in November, which is our kickoff event, where it was very broadly, what do you want park spaces to look like? What do you want streets to look like? What do you want the buildings to look like that will follow the improvements that we're making in the Stitch? And now our team has collected input from over 4,000 people through the different engagement events that we've had, online, in person, and pop-up events at different residences around downtown. And they've started to develop alternative ideas around how these visions for North Downtown, how we could achieve them through things like infrastructure and policy changes, partnerships with organizations downtown, and funding programs. And so we want to hear your feedback on some of those initial ideas tonight. What we're going to do is distill all of this feedback into a final set of recommendations that will be released as part of our draft master plan we release this summer. And then from there, we will take the draft master plan to City Council. This is a project that we're working very closely with the city on. And City Council will adopt the master plan, hopefully, and say we want to build the Stitch. And then from there, we work with the recent grant we won to implement phase 1. So we'll start engineering design, moving towards construction of phase 1. And at that point, that's when we will continue outreach, really kind of deep diving at a block by block level as to what those streets are going to look like, how wide the sidewalk's going to be, where street trees are going to go, what kind of plants are going to be in the park, etc. So this will not be the end of the engagement around the Stitch. This will be something that continues on for many years. I do want to talk a little bit about the historical reason we're doing the Stitch and why the Stitch is needed for downtown. Why is this something that we're taking on as a city, as a downtown? Because it's a major investment, and it will be it will be a lot of work to implement the project. And you really have to look back, almost 75 years to downtown pre the interstate highway system. And you see downtown in 1960, this is before the highways came through, and you can see the skyline there, which was much different than it looks today. But also what looks very different than today is you see what kind of surrounds downtown. And what was there were a lot of residential neighborhoods. And you can see mixed use buildings, you can see multifamily buildings. And these were neighborhoods that lived around, people that lived around downtown. These were established, well-connected communities. They were mostly working class black communities, and they worked downtown, they lived downtown, they shopped downtown, and they went to entertainment venues downtown. And when the interstate was being planned, leaders at the time viewed these as blighted areas standing in the way of the future of downtown, which was building the interstate to allow suburban commuters into downtown and really changing downtown from kind of this mixed use live work play type community to a very office centric high density office community that served suburban white collar commuters predominantly. So the interstates were intentionally routed through these communities, which in our area around the Stitch were known as Buttermilk Bottoms predominantly. There's also Butler Street, Sweet Auburn to the south, and this happened all around Atlanta. This isn't just downtown, and all around the country, and cities throughout the country. But in our area of the world, it virtually, it did eliminate Buttermilk Bottom, displaced 24,000 residents, and erased those community connections, that community wealth, and those folks were displaced all over the city. And there's no way we can put back Buttermilk Bottoms, Butler Street, and the communities and community connections that were in place. But one of the things that we are really leaning in on with this project is trying to create, with the redevelopment of this area, more equitable development opportunities for all in the redevelopment, and that means affordable housing across the spectrum of affordability, from deeply affordable to workforce housing, missing middle housing as it's also known, as well as opportunities for small businesses, and opportunities for access via this housing, via this better transportation, access to low-cost transportation, better access to high-paying jobs, which are predominantly in the core of our city. So we want to hear your thoughts on that as a part of the input tonight. Right next to us here at Gabby's station, she's helping us come up with the policy ideas, the funding ideas, program ideas, and partnerships that we will need, because this won't all be on us to move this forward. It will be on other organizations, as well as having the community weigh in and keep everyone accountable and keep everybody working towards this to happen. So we definitely want you to give your input there. So stepping back out at what the Stitch is, and what we're doing. So the Stitch is 14 acres of new green space, new park, that we plan to build right over the downtown connector, in the north part of downtown. If you look out that window, that's where the Stitch will be. It will run from Ted Turner to Piedmont, around 3/4 of a mile. And in conjunction with this, we understand the importance that if we build a park and no way to get to it, no way to walk to it, bike to it, access it safely and comfortably, it's not going to create the change that we want to see in this area. So a big part of this project is also reimagining the transportation network in North Downtown, and how these streets work, how these streets look and feel, to try and make them safe, more comfortable, and inviting places than they are today, and connect the four quadrants of our city. So connect Midtown to downtown, connect East Side neighborhoods to downtown, as well as West Side neighborhoods like English Avenue, Vine City to downtown. And I'll show you a little bit more detail as to our thinking there as we move along. And again, this is about taking advantage of where we are in Atlanta. So in North Downtown today, around the Stitch, within a half a mile of Stitch, there's about 38 acres of parking lots, vacant land, empty buildings. And that's a huge opportunity in the densest part of our city to absorb some of this growth, this incredible growth that we expect over the decades to come. We have a huge need for housing in Atlanta, in the core of our city and throughout the region, and affordable housing at that. And so this represents a big opportunity to help meet some of that housing demand that our region is facing. And today, the reason a lot of that acreage is vacant is because it's characterized by wide streets with several lanes that are several lanes wide, that are one-way streets that allow cars to drive really quickly. They were designed so cars can move quickly in and out of downtown, to the interstate, to the suburbs. And so we need to rethink how those streets work. Making sure that we're not causing gridlock, right? We don't want to shut these streets down, but we need to make them more balanced so that they're safe, inviting places to walk, bike, and access transit. And then removing the barrier that is the interstate itself. So transforming what's noisy, what's an air polluted area into a new green heart for downtown. And if we do that, we estimate that this could usher in 14 million square feet of new development in this area over the course of the next several decades, which amounts to over 20,000 potential housing units within a half mile. And lastly, very importantly, we're located right on with the Stitch, the Civic Center MARTA station, which is one of the lowest ridership MARTA stations in our system. So by doing this, we're increasing access to low-cost transportation. It will also benefit MARTA revenues, and allow for system upgrades of MARTA as well in the future. So zooming into, I know I talked about our phase one of the project, and just a little bit more about what that is. So we recently won a $160 million grant from the United States Department of Transportation through the Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhoods program to build phase one of the Stitch. And this is a huge win for our region. This is one of the biggest discretionary transportation grants that's ever been given out in the history of USDOT across the country. It's the biggest one ever in our region. So it just goes to show how much our federal government believes in this project, how much local leaders like our mayor, our city councilmen believe in this project. And it's really been a partnership among a lot of different folks. The Atlanta Regional Commission, our Metropolitan Planning Organization, MARTA, and GDOT are all at the table in planning and delivering this project. And what phase one will be, so the entire Stitch is that 14 acres I mentioned. Phase one will be capping the interstate between Peachtree Street and Cortlandt Street, which amounts to around 4 to 5 acres of new park space, and rethinking all of these streets and implementing infrastructure improvements on all these streets surrounding it. And I will come back to timeline here in a second. Don't feel like I'm just skipping over that. So zooming out here, you can see the extent of those street improvements is a part of phase one. That's 7 streets in total, and they will connect to improvements that are funded and happening in Midtown that will continue further north. improvements that are funded and happening or recently built in the core of downtown, as well as to the east, improvements that are planned and funded as a part of the Moving Atlanta Forward projects that the City of Atlanta is doing on Ralph McGill. There are improvements on Central Park Place that will connect to the Freedom Park Trail. Those Ralph McGill Boulevard improvements will connect to the East Side Beltline. And then on the west side, we're connecting to the West Side Connector Trail to the Beltline as well. So connecting to both east and west segments of the Beltline through downtown. And why that's so important, we not only need people living downtown to create that live, work, play community, very similar to in a lot of ways like Midtown is, but with an eye to trying to keep our housing environment affordable now and into the future. But we also need to connect to adjacent neighborhoods to bring them into downtown because the interstate and these very car-oriented roads serve as major barriers for a lot of folks today. So I told you I'd come back to schedule, and here we are. So again, we're wrapping up master planning this summer, moving into phase one, engineering and design, moving towards construction. We expect to break ground on the project sometime in 2026 or 2027. It's probably not going to all happen at the same time. We're not going to tear up all the streets and the cap at the same time. We're working with the team to figure out kind of the phasing of the different components right now. But you'll probably start to see some activity beginning in 2026. And we anticipate having phase one wrapped up by 2030. Subsequent phases of the stitch are currently not funded right now. We anticipate in the future we will have local philanthropic contributions to the stitch. We also are looking at an assessment district for this area town to help pay for potential capital improvements as well as operations and maintenance, because we don't want to build the stitch and not have any money to program it, maintain it in the future. There has to be enough funding to keep it going and keep it well maintained and programmed for years to come. And so those are things we're working on now, and we think moving forward with phase one, that's really a great first step into building the momentum for having phases 2 and phase 3 happen. If they don't ever happen, we still get a great park and a lot of transportation improvements as a part of phase 1. We are working very hard to make sure that the entire vision is realized. And again, thank you for coming. Please fill out those comment cards. One of the things I'll ask is if you're interested in being involved in the stitch, not only in the next several months, but potentially for years to come, we need community involvement and input and participation to make this live up to the community's vision, right? It needs to come from the community, and the community needs to be a part of it. So please sign up. Just say you're interested. You can say you're interested in these groups. It's not going to commit you to anything. But if you are interested, we'll reach out to you with more information at some point in the future on how you can get involved and stay involved. Thanks everyone, and feel free to mingle around, talk to anybody in the stitch shirts. I would recommend kind of spending time at areas that you feel most interested and passionate about, because it's a lot of information to take in. If you don't get to everything, we have an online survey with all this same information that's coming out next week. So if you're subscribed to our newsletter, you'll get the link to that as well. Thank you very much, and thank you for being here.